let's go. Yeah, so hello and welcome to our first virtual online workshop, and entitled sort of to protect what you have for those you love. And for those who aren't clients, my name is Mark Reynolds. I'm a lifestyle financial planner at M Reynolds Financial Solutions, and we're based just outside Armagh. And really, we have a close ongoing relationship with a select group of clients, and we help them to identify and achieve real lifestyle financial planning objectives and future objectives as well. But the point of today's presentation, really, the background to today's presentation, why we put it together. Well, I think we're now into week 13 of lockdown. I know it's starting to ease, and if you're like me, if you've tidied the house, you've been outside, you've power washed, you've cut back stuff, you've spring cleaned the inside of the house from top to bottom, and if you're like me, you have a living room or a dining room which is bursting with stuff which is destined for the amenity site or for the charity shops. So, and if you're like me, you've also had probably more of an opportunity to talk to your family about this horrible thing called the coronavirus or COVID-19, and what the impact is on our lives. So, that sort of the nature of those conversations sort of got me thinking, what else could we be doing? What haven't we done because we've been too busy in the past living our lives? What are the things that we've been putting off, or what are the things we've just forgotten about? And we have an opportunity now, I suppose, now we're at home more, just to look at those things and see if are there things that we can do to protect those we love the most, especially if something happened to one of us, if we were struck down by this virus. So we've put together this workshop. It's a Zoom workshop, and if you want to, it's an interactive workshop. So feel free to ask any question by typing in or by asking any questions. You'll see there's a little speech bubble at the bottom. You can use that as well if you rather type it in. And as they come in, we will try and include those in the presentation. Now you may see, and when I'm doing this, I might sort of look away from the camera from time to time, and that's just because we're looking at what the questions are as they come in. It's not that I'm trying to be like a newscaster, read the questions and present at the same time. So it's not that I'm being rude, it's or that I've been sort of thrown off. Well, I might have been thrown off, but we're not going to worry about that anyway. So again, yeah, it's an interactive session, so please feel free to put some content in there. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen with you now. In which case you'll be able to see the full presentation. And again, protect what you have for those you love. Right, let's see. A few problems here. Okay, right, so I'm going to make, first of all, I'm going to make a few assumptions. I'm going to make 3 assumptions. And the first assumption is that you've made a will, and it's up to date. You're working with an advisor, and I'm sure you've spoken to your advisor in the past, and you have a will, and you've talked about the content of that will, or if you haven't, you're in the process of doing that. So I'm going to make that assumption that you have made a will. I'm also going to make the assumption that you have in place a beneficiary protection trust. Okay. Now, what this is this is a trust which is linked to your will, which protects your assets as they pass down to the next generation. So, for example, with myself, I have this arrangement so that in the event of if I'm dying of myself and my wife die, my 3 children, my daughter and my 2 sons, they each have a beneficiary protection trust. What that means is when both my wife and I die, our assets will pass into those trusts. And that means that our children will benefit from that. It'll be theirs and it can't be taken away from them by anybody else. Okay. So if I can give you an example of that, if, let's say my daughter Alice, if she was to get married, yeah, anything she would inherit from us would go into the trust, and she could use that. She could use those assets for whatever she wanted, for all the wonderful things she could do with that. But if for example, if something happened and that she was divorced, her husband wouldn't be able to access those assets that she would have inherited from us. Okay, so it's basically what we've done is we created something which sits between us, our will, and our children. So it sort of sits in between, and it makes sure that that they're protected. Okay, those assets are protected, and it's a very hot topic at the moment, because if you take again, say for example with Alice, if she was say in business, and say and she had to go into lockdown, and that resulted in her being out of business. Okay, well, any gifts we would have made during our lifetime, her creditors could make application for. Okay, and any inheritances that she would have had, also again, her creditors could make application for, which wouldn't exactly be what we would have wanted. So again, by having this sort of trust in there, what it's done, it's protecting those assets for your children's benefit, making sure that those benefits can't be taken away in circumstances like that. So I'm going to make that assumption, first of all, that you've done that as well. And finally, I'm going to just make the third assumption I'm going to make before we start the full presentation is you've made some provision for inheritance tax. Now, we all know that if we have any assets above £325,000, anything above that, for those that would inherit, is subject to inheritance tax. Now, there is another smaller allowance called the residential nil rate band, and that applies to your property. And if that passes down by your will, I think it's currently it's £175,000, and if that passes down to your children, that's also that basically what that does, it increases the 325,000 to 500,000, the amount that you can pass down to the next generation. Okay. Now, as I said, this is not a taxation presentation. This is not about inheritance tax. Let's just give you a bit of background. So I'm going to make that assumption that that you've made those arrangements. Okay. Good. Is that everything okay? So yeah. So what I'm going to look at, the three areas that we're going to look at today are the legal areas, financial, and some practical areas. Essentially, action points that, in our experience, that you could take to make life easier for those you care about the most. So if I start with the first one, which is the legal, and it's something that I always feel it's a great feeling when I see that this is being dealt with, and it's something that I feel everybody should have, which is an enduring power of attorney. Now, I want to make something clear at the beginning of this presentation that, especially if you're watching this as a recording, this is only applicable to people who live in Northern Ireland. If you live in other parts of the United Kingdom, then there's different laws relating to powers of attorney. So, and we're not going to be discussing that during this presentation. So this is just for Northern Ireland residents. So an enduring power of attorney is something we believe everybody should have. And what it is essentially where you appoint someone, an attorney, to look after your assets. And it continues in the event of you being incapacitated, mentally incapacitated, okay? And again, again, using the example, if you had this terrible coronavirus, and let's assume then you had to go into hospital, then you had to go into isolation, or worse, then how are you going to communicate with your bank? How are you going to communicate with the Health and Social Care Trust? How are you going to manage your financial affairs? And what an enduring power of attorney does, it enables you to appoint someone to do that for you. You've appointed someone who can make those decisions, who can then correspond with your bank, okay, who can pay your bills, who can help with your investments and deal with taxation issues, as well as working with the local health and social care trust. Okay, so you've put that in place. You've given someone else the power to make those decisions for you in relation to those areas. Okay, because the thing you don't want to have is that if you're incapacitated, if you're in hospital, and the thing you don't want to have is if you can't pay those bills, you need someone to pay those bills in your absence. You don't want to have the tax bill hanging over your head and you're not in a position to do anything about it. So it's a very important document to have, is this thing called an enduring power of attorney. And once you've created it, it can be used immediately. But if you lose capacity, then it must be registered with the Office of Care and Protections. It must be registered with the courts. Now, those people who have an enduring power of attorney, they have it. It's probably kept in a safe place with all their other documents. But always make sure that, make sure your attorney knows where those documents are. Okay, where that attorney is. Also, it's a good idea to talk to your attorney about how you'd want them to deal with things like your bank accounts, how you'd want them to deal with your bills and things like that. Just have that conversation beforehand, so he's aware of what you'd like to see done in the event of that happening. Okay, and it's not a difficult thing to set up, an enduring power of attorney. You can do that quite easily. It can be done on the telephone. It can be done by like a Zoom meeting. So it's not a difficult thing to set up with your advisor. Now, things to remember are that the attorney, the signature of the donor needs to be witnessed, as does the signature of the attorney. And the donor and the attorney can't witness each other, so they must be witnessed independently. But it's a very important document to have, and it really does. There's no reason not to have it. There's no reason not to have it, and it does remove a huge amount of hassle for your family members in the event of you having to go into a care home or into hospital as a result of COVID. The other area I'm going to look at is home insurance, which is a strange one. I know people probably think, why is that? But we all live in a home, and we all live in a house or a flat. Could it be a house or a flat? And if we have contents, then we should have some form of contents insurance. And if we own the house, then we should have some form of buildings insurance. But in my experience, insurance companies are not always the most generous and easy to deal with, and especially as we're spending a lot of time at home at the moment. People are on furlough. People may be working from home. And we're spending a lot more time at home, and we're doing all these things at home, and all this DIY, for example. And then what would happen if, in a situation, say, where we knocked a pot of paint over, or we had to make a claim? And what would happen if the policyholder was in hospital? Okay, was in isolation on a ventilator, and I've seen this happen on quite a few occasions where let's say the spouse would ring up and to try and make a claim, and the insurance company will say, well, can we speak to the policyholder, please? And that's when it all sort of tends to kick off, and you're saying, well, the policyholder can't be contacted. So a simple thing to do there is probably to make sure that you put the policy into joint names, and it's not difficult. You can arrange an insurance policy nowadays online via Direct Line or other providers. And you can then just type in your details, and you can see it up on the screen that both your names are there. And that's a simple enough way of renewing it as well, by just clicking renew. And that way you can make sure that in the event of one of you being in hospital and a claim being made, you've removed that hassle. Because I'm reminded of my father. He passed away about nearly 3 years ago now. And Mum was getting insurances. The insurance, he would organize the insurance, was in his name. He did it annually because it saved on the finance costs that they tend to add on. And I remember the renewal would come and was addressed to him. And, you know, what would have happened had, say, the roof of the house blown off in a storm? And mum would have had to go and then contact the insurance company to make a claim. In my experience, they would have said, well, can we speak to the policyholder? And they could have told them, well, we can't deal with you in a situation like that, which would be terrible at the best of times. But so have your home insurance in joint names. It's not a difficult thing to do, and it can again remove a lot of hassle. So there's a couple of sort of legal action points that you should take: is have an enduring power of attorney, and make sure your attorney knows where it is, and have your house insurance in joint names. Okay. So the next one that we're going to look at is a few financial planning action points, and they are the first one we're going to look at is this thing called an investment clause. Okay. Now, I know you're dealing with your financial advisor, and this is something that I've seen that we've started to notice that is not there anymore. It's not there at all. And it's this idea of having an investment clause within your enduring power of attorney. And especially again, if you're in hospital, if you're incapacitated and you can't deal with this, and your attorney's dealing with it, and your advisor's there, we're living in very turbulent times within the markets, and your advisor is working hard to make sure that you will benefit from any upswing in the market, and to try and protect you against any further falls. And he may, in normal times, he's making changes to your portfolio. But again, imagine if you're in hospital with coronavirus, and he needs to make changes to your portfolio. Now, I don't know if for those people watching this as a recording and who are not our clients, your advisor may not. I don't know how he manages them. We would use a thing called a discretionary management service, where we're able to make changes to our clients' portfolios. Okay, but we need to involve them in that. So we always think it's a good thing to have to enable us to do that, to carry out our actions. It's important to have that investment clause in there. Otherwise, it's very difficult for us then to do that job of keeping that sort of wealth, those investments, managing them effectively. Okay, so again, if you have an enduring power of attorney, again, it's a good opportunity now with the time you have in your hands, just to have a word with your advisor and to talk about that, and just to make sure that it's there, because it's something which is often overlooked, and it's not that difficult to put right. You can get it redrafted, and it's a good opportunity to have a word with your advisor. So the next area of financial management is passwords. Okay. Now, I don't know about you, but it seems I must have about 83 different passwords. And you know what it's like. We're supposed to have different passwords for different things. And we're not supposed to use the same one all the time. And we're not supposed to write them down either. So can you imagine again what the situation would be like if you were, again, had to go into hospital or were incapacitated? How would anybody be able to access your accounts? How would your attorney be able to do that to get into the system? Now, there's a challenge here, because you don't want to just be giving anybody your passwords to be able to access this information, to pay those, to meet those requirements. Because if you do that, you could lose a lot of the benefits that the securities that the banks provide. Okay, so we found a way of doing that, which is to basically document, using an Excel spreadsheet, is to record your bank details and your passwords on an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so document, okay, and make sure somebody knows, the person that you want to handle it is aware of this document, and then also to password protect this document. And it's a simple thing to do. You can go into the file area, the file tab there, and there in the file tab, there's an area where, I think it's on the info section, where you can protect your password. Okay, and then what you can do is, if you've saved it, say, on a memory stick, what you can do is you can give one document to, say if you, well, I'll give an example. Say if you've got two sons, and you could give one the document with the password on it, and you could give the other one the unique access code to get into the password document. So what that would mean then, in the event of greatest need, then you would have, the situation would be that they would have to work together to be able to access your financial details or your bank account details, so they could help then protect the people in your household, the people you care the most. And we find that to be a very effective way of helping to do that, to protect those passwords and to have them logged somewhere. Because I've been involved in cases, with probate cases, where my own personal experience, when you've gone and tried to find stuff, and then you come up against, you can't even get into the computer to find out where this is because it's password protected. So this is a very, very, and I would urge you to do that. It's a very, very effective way of protecting those passwords and making it accessible and giving those the knowledge as to where those passwords are. Okay, so that's the sort of financials, the investment clause within your power of attorney, and have some way of protecting your passwords. So finally, we're going to just move on to the some practical areas that we've identified that you can use to help protect those that you care about the most. And the first one, it's a strange one. It's keys. It's keys. Having a second set of keys. So I want to give you an example, just to illustrate that. Is, well, mum and dad has a heart attack. Okay, mum phones the doctor, and the doctor then phones for an ambulance, and mum and dad are taken to hospital. And look, dad's okay, he's fine, and mum comes home, and mum's trying to get into the house and realizes, where are the keys? Where do you think the keys are? The keys are with dad, aren't they, in the hospital? So she has to get her neighbor to help her to break into the house. So the alarm goes off because the fob that deactivates the alarm is on the keys, which are with dad in the hospital. And mum can't remember what the codes were to access to disable the alarm. So 2 hours later, then been getting in contact with the alarm company, and the police have arrived. You could have avoided that just by having a duplicate set of keys. And even if you use the example, if for example, mum and dad are still in hospital and you need something to be brought from home, like a set of pajamas or medication or medical records, the ability just to ring someone and who has a duplicate set of keys, who can gain access to your home and then can bring these items along, can be a great help. We've looked into something like using a thing called like a key safe, which is like a little box you can put on the side of your home somewhere or the side of the garage, which is like a combination lock. And you can put a set of keys in there and secure it with a combination lock. And so I can say for example, that happened, you could ring your son or something to say they could go around to the house, open the little key safe and gain access to the property to do that type of thing. So we had a funny situation actually arose a few years ago. This sort of reminds me of it, which was a friend of mine had been asked to be an attorney for his parents, and his dad asked him to be an attorney, and he was at his mum and dad's house one day, and he was asking his mum. He says, "Well, mum, okay, where do you keep the documents? Where do you keep the enduring power of attorney document?" She said, "In the safe." And he said, "Mum, you don't have a safe." And his mum said, "Yeah, you have a safe, of course you have." And she said, "Well," he said, "You have a safe?" "Yeah." He says, "Well, I didn't know about the safe." She says, "Where is it?" She says, "Well, come with me." So she brought him into the bedroom. And then she pulled this wardrobe, she pulled this cupboard away from the wall, and in behind this was a safe. It had a key and had a combination lock on it as well. And my mate said to her, he says, "Mum, does Paul know you have this safe?" And she looked at him and says, "Oh, I don't know." And he said, "Well, look, imagine what would have happened if something would have happened to his parents. How would he have known to go into the bedroom, pull away this wardrobe to find this safe there with their documents in it?" So it's important there from that point of view is to let somebody know where the safe is, if you're going to have, and where the keys are to the safe, because you're going to, you know, you can imagine if anything had happened, and you're looking for these documents, looking for wills, looking for enduring power of attorney, and you can't find them. You know, and if you can't find them, well, a will is useless if you don't know it exists. So, you know, an enduring power of attorney is a useless document if you don't know that it exists. So let somebody know where the keys are to the safe, and where the combination is for the safe, and that the safe exists. You know, so it really does. It's a huge help in a situation where someone's incapacitated or worse. And, you know, the last point we're going to just look at is an area which is important contacts. And this, for me, this is really relevant to myself, because my mum, now this is, I don't know what age you are, you could be 50, 60, really, but my mum is, she's in her 80s, and like we would communicate from, we would keep in touch over the phone, and we have this thing called the Facebook portal, which you see advertised on television, which enables us to keep in touch, which is great fun. And I was having a conversation with her the other day, and she was telling me about her lifelong friends, Doris and Kevin, and how Kevin had passed away. And it sort of got me thinking again about this idea of, you know, well, you know, what would happen if anything happened to my mum? There's a lot of people out there who would need to know about this. And how would I know to sort of contact these people? So I've been speaking to them about sort of having, she has this book which has like a Christmas card list on it, where she writes all the names and addresses of these people that she knows. And I just thought it would be hugely beneficial to have a record or a document or something so what I've done, I've asked her really to just write down the names and addresses and contact numbers of the people that she knows, that she'd be in regular contact with, so that if anything did happen to her, if she lost her capacity or whatever, I would be able to contact these people to keep them informed of what had happened, what's happened. And I would say the same about things like medical records as well. It's always good to have a document there with details of who your GP is, what doctor you may be attending, what prescriptions you may be on, things like pharmacists and things like that. Having something recorded, contacts, details like that as well, are always very helpful. And then other areas like financial details. I know if you've got a good relationship with your financial advisor, it's always handy to have a document there which has all your financial details on it. Your financial advisor will have them as well, but he may not have all of them. So again, it's really helpful in a situation where something happens to you, that there's a document there that someone knows where it is and that can be easily accessed, and it can really make the life of your loved ones a lot simpler. And same with areas like the utilities you use. Remember way back in the day, we used to only have one or two. Now we're using numerous utilities. So it's always helpful if we can have the names of the utilities, their contact details, and account numbers and so on recorded on a document, which would enable us to have access to it, and let people know that document exists. Let those few people know that document exists, and it really make life so much easier. Okay, so there we've got those. Those are just what I would call like 2 practical tips about keys, making sure the second set, making sure that people know where they are, and things like having a list of contacts or documents which you've put together, and a few people know where they are. So hopefully you've found these to be, I haven't seen any questions come through, so hopefully you've found these to be some helpful tips, 6 helpful actions that we can take. I know that this coronavirus, the likelihood is you're not going to be struck down by it. But we never know, do we, when something could befall us. And at some point it will do. Not with the coronavirus, it may be something else. So hopefully you find this to be a benefit. And if you've got questions, you haven't wanted to put them up, as part of the workshop today, then look, would urge you, please feel free to contact us. I'll just show you our contact details. Feel free to contact us, because you often find that when somebody asks a question, you can often find that somebody else has a similar question very much related to that, and we can then put together more content and more of this type of workshop for you to help you with those areas. But again, look, this is all about sort of thinking about the time. We've got more time on our hands than we ever had, probably because of this virus, and there's an opportunity here for us to put things in place to help people. It's just protecting those we care about the most in the time we have. And I'd just like to thank you again for taking the time to listen to us today, and thank you for watching.
Mark, before you leave,
yep,
I become incapacitated and have to go into hospital. Right. How do you you have your power of attorney and everything else? How do you set it in action? Is there any procedure you need to go through?
Well, Donald, no, that it's not a difficult thing to do. You can actually download the document, but we have the document. We have the document here, and yeah, it's the only tricky part with it, and it's the social distancing issue, which was probably the only tricky part. Is you've got to get someone to witness your signature.
Yeah, but I have it up and everything else. But if I have to go into hospital, how does, say, whoever's in charge of it, how do they set it up? Do they have to turn around and get in touch with courts, or how do they activate it?
Right. Well, first of all, if you've done it already, you created it. Now we need to get a look at the document itself to see what restrictions you've applied to it.
Okay.
But once you've drafted it there, and if you've lost mental capacity, then when you lose mental capacity, it has to be registered with the Office of the Court of Protection, Care and Protection. Okay. It's the courts basically to enable the attorney to continue to act. So by having that document, I'll need to say it's drafted, but it could be used from the day you've signed it. It could be used from, unless you have the restrictions in place. But in order for it to be used when you lose capacity, that has to then be registered with the Office of the Court of Protection, I think it is. So it has to be registered with them. So it would take a bit of time to do that, and then your attorney can then act. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. That's okay.
But it's always well worth revisiting it, because we've noticed that the investment clauses are not always there, because we're finding as the investment world moves on and evolves, these things should be like part of your financial planning meeting, is that we look at these areas: wills, trusts, enduring power of attorneys, and such like, as an integral part. So that those questions you're raising, which are very good questions, you can quickly address them, and that's one less thing to worry about.
Okay.
Yeah. Anything else, folks? Anybody?
No, I'm okay. Everything else, I think you've answered okay.
Good. And I'm going to see how I can. I'm just going to. Well, let's say if there's anything else, look, come back to us, and we'll take it from there. And I'm just looking around here at the moment, trying to see how I can. If there's anything else we can come back to, then let us know. And look, thanks very much for sitting with us. I hope you find this a valuable use of your time. Okay.
Okay, Mark.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.